do you do when you're given less than a 1% chance to live? In this deeply moving episode of the Paige Kornblue Show, I sit down with John O'Leary, a two-time best-selling author, award-winning podcast host, and the man behind the hit film Soul on Fire. At just 9 years old, John was burned on 100% of his body in a tragic accident and asked a life-altering question: do you want to live? His answer and the journey that followed became the foundation of a message now inspiring millions around the world. Join us here for a moment in this conversation. John O'Leary is with me now, and I'm so honored to speak with you. And like we've talked about, John, a little preview of what's to come for the YMCA of South Palm Beach County Inspiration Breakfast 2026. Welcome. Good to see you.
Hi, Paige.
So just for you to know, the keynote speakers for this breakfast, I'm going to give you a little list, okay? Joe Theismann, Emmett Smith, Sugar Ray Leonard, Desmond Howard, Shannon Miller, Regis Philbin, Bobby Bowden, Alonzo Mourning, Aaron Andrews, Bill Walton, Dara Torres, Mark Rick, Jason Taylor. That list goes on. And soon, John O'Leary is going to be added to that list.
Well, I think it speaks to the fact that we're looking for someone who's not athletic, and they have accomplished that goal. They can check that box, and they can go back to athletes next year and beyond. But you know, that list you just shared, I've done some research on your community and a little bit of research on this event. I'm blown away by those names, and to think that one day someone else will be reviewing the list of who's been here before, and they'll see a name they may not even recognize among all those other greats. So I'm humbled by that. And I think the thing that will connect us is many of those folks probably chatted about a coach in their lives who built them up, a mentor who guided them, the work that was required, all these things that go into their success. And so you come thinking you'll learn about the gold medal or the trophy or their greatness, and you walk out learning about what got them there. And in that same vein, that's what my story's about. You come in thinking it's about one thing maybe, and it ends up being about every single other person that showed up in this little boy's life, what they did, how they showed up, and then what it means for us. So that I've read that list, Paige, and it blows me away and it humbles me.
Well, we're so excited to have you coming soon. If you were to, in your bio, it talks about what it all started with, right? In 1987, John O'Leary, a curious 9-year-old boy, playing with fire and gasoline. You created a massive explosion in your home, and it burned 100% of your body, given less than a 1% chance to live. So much comes from that. How do you explain who is John O'Leary?
I mean, first you got to go back before he blows himself up. I mean, that's a story, I guess. But the real story is John was blessed to be born to two amazing parents. Raised well by them, loved extraordinarily fiercely by them, grew up strong in our faith, grew up in a community with 5 little kids around the dinner table. I was the 6th, a dog at the end of it, grandparents, like just really an incredible life. And we had a lot of good days, but what we warmed up to in the great days was how to prepare for the hard ones. And so I would have never been capable of surviving a fire had I not been surrounded by that kind of love and that kind of foundation of strength from which we could leap and lean back into when the day came. And that day did come. I mean, you mentioned 100% burn, and then you said, less than a 1% chance of surviving. The way the math works out on this in 2026 is they take the percentage of a body burned, 100, they add your age, and they've got mortality. So in 2026, 40 years later, if this child shows up, he has 109% likelihood of dying. So, Paige, when you said, John, how did you survive it? Through grace. Like I didn't do this thing. I've been fortunate to fight a little bit and be surrounded by a lot of great people. But undoubtedly, this was a miracle story. And it's one of the reasons why we love sharing it, because there's so much hopelessness and despair in the marketplace. And then they hear this story and it gives people hope to keep moving forward in their struggles.
And I feel like it's allowing yourself to find that grace, right? Because we know it exists, we know it's there. And sometimes so many of our struggles and challenges and these big hurdles or small hurdles really can block those. So what do you say to folks to find that grace, allow it in
Right.
our lives?
My mom, so we've had two house fires at their home now. The first one was when I was burned. The second one was 20 years later, but they lost everything a second time. And both times she's bought a little poster that went back up in her kitchen. And on that poster are the words, "This too shall pass." Those are awesome words. She hung it up originally when she was married, when she had six healthy kids and a golden retriever dog who was completely overfed, and life was awesome. The sun was shining. This too shall pass. Don't blink. Don't blink. Then the house gets burned down. Then her child disappears for 6 months. Then he comes back to this rebuilt home and she hangs it back up again, buys it and hangs it back up. This too shall pass. The struggles, the difficulty, the ashes, the misery of the day, like this too shall pass. Hang on for the ride, grit your teeth a little bit, keep moving forward and keep the faith. And then 20 years later, they have a second house fire. Boom, lose it all, rebuilt, but not without hanging up that sign, this too shall pass. And just this past summer, my father passed away. But we have this sense of awe in our family because we had two amazing parents who reminded us that in the dark, difficult days of life, and who hasn't had some, that this too shall pass. So lean into your faith, lean into your brothers and sisters, have a little bit of courage and keep stepping forward. But we also had the kind of parents who, when life was awesome, and we've had a lot of awesome in our lives, they wanted to keep us humble and hungry. And so that's what I would encourage folks who currently find themselves in a position of struggle. Hang on to those words. This too shall pass. The foundation is firm. I believe God is still God and your best is yet to come.
Um, you just said you lost your dad. Is that this summer?
Yeah, just 7 months ago now.
How do you keep him present in all that? I've lost my parents too, and so I always encourage people keep them present, and whether it's maybe through your messages and your what you're sharing, but I, I always like to stress, but also kind of hear from you. Obviously, a big part of your world.
There's a lot of ways to keep a person present. One is to keep whispering their name. In particular, this is going to get me all emotional. I get far more emotional on other people's stories than my own. So I got a friend who his son died by suicide years ago. And every time I see my friend, I'm like, "How is your son? How is your daughter?" And then I say, I think about Ethan every day. He just guides. And he says to me back, "John, you're the only person who will whisper his name." And it touches his heart so much to know that this person who he loved and loves so much is still present in someone else's life. So one way I keep my dad alive is to whisper his name. We talk about him all the time around the dinner table. I was at a football game recently with one of my kids and we talked about, gosh, Grandpa would love this. Grandpa would have just loved this.
Mm.
Grandpa's parents spent some time in Florida. That's where the game was. So we talked about walking on the beach with Grandpa. And I think rehashing those old memories is a wonderful way to keep a person who you loved alive and well today. I talk to my dad still. I don't think I'm weird. I might be, but I think talking to a loved one is a wonderful way to let them know that you're still with them and they're still with you. And I think living for them. My dad was a grateful man. So I have a practice now of gratitude every morning. My dad was a faithful man. I practiced my faith actively in part because of my dad. My dad was a generous guy. When he had a lot, he gave a lot. When he had little, he gave more. And so I try to be in the same way I witnessed greatness in my dad. I try to be a little bit of that in the marketplace today. So although I miss my dad every day, I actually feel closer to him now than I did as he spent the last 20 years of his life or so struggling with Parkinson's disease.
You talk about big start. The start of your story is that line with your mom, right? And this was after the burn, the first incident at the home when you were burned, and you said that she asked you the question, and I want you to tell it. You could be much better than I would, but take us to that moment and kind of how that changed the trajectory of
Yeah.
everything for you.
And well, it's such a bold question what you're about to hear, and it's a true story. So everything that you hear in interviews or books, or if you watch the film Soul on Fire, like it's all just it happened, which makes truth is stranger than fiction so often. So what happened here in this case? Well, I show up in the hospital. I'm laying in a hospital bed, dying. I'm 9. I'm scared. I'm skinless, and I'm hopeless. And my mother walks in and she takes my right hand in hers and she pats my little bald head and she says, I love you. I just love you so much, John. And I looked up and said, Mom, knock it off with the love. Am I going to die? And I assumed she would respond with a normal motherly answer like, no, baby, you're fine. We're going to get you out of here today. We'll swing you through a steak and shake on the way home. We'll get you a milkshake. I assumed my mother would give me encouragement. And instead, Paige, she just was honest. She took my hand a little bit more firm and patted my head one more time. And she said, baby, do you want to? Do you want to die? It's your choice. It's not mine. So I remember looking up and I said, Mom, I don't want to die. I want to live. And her response was, good, honey. Then look at me. You take the hand of God, you walk the journey with him, and you fight like you never fought before. She said, your father and I will be with you every step along the way, but you have to do your part too. Fight. And why that's so pivotal for me is it's like the beginning of every single page or every single step that we took next. None of it, I don't think, would have happened, or at least happened well, had mom not challenged me to own my piece of it. And it's so common these days to wait for someone else to step up and just do it for us. My mother recognized there will be a lot of people fighting and working and praying alongside of John, but if he's not on board, if he's not rowing too, this is all for naught. So my mother was bold enough to remind me I still had agency, even in the midst of struggle. I think that first step led to the next one and the next one. And 39 and a half years later, you and I are doing life together on this interview.
John, so many of those steps, so many of those pages, so many of those chapters, right? At the in between, like you said, decades. When did you realize, the survival was obviously your choice to jump in and be the biggest part of it all, but with so many helpers, such a village. But when did you realize, okay, there's more here and there's more I can do, and my story can have ripple effects on so many other people's?
Man, it was a slow erosion type experience for me. When I look back on this whole journey and the stories tucked in it, it's so obviously a miraculous story. Like people should know this. You should just know there's stories like this out there, and it will give you hope. And yet, many times in life, we take for granted the things closest to us. We take for granted our family or our health or where we live. And I took for granted this story for 20 years. You and I have some mutual friends, in fact, and those mutual friends have never heard me share this story. Now, when I knew them back in college, because I was trying to keep that part of my life compartmentalized and in the closet. So I never told anybody how I got burned. I tried to walk around with my hand because I'm missing my fingers on both hands. So I tried to cross my arms as frequently as possible and not be identified by the scars or the past. And when that changed for me was, a whole lot of things led to it. My mom and dad wrote a little book, almost like a pamphlet. It's called Overwhelming Odds. It's the story of their little boy getting burned. And it's the unauthorized biography of John O'Leary. So I got to read about what happened to me. I knew it because I lived it, but I didn't realize all the beauty that was part of that story. And then I read this book and it blew me away. I also had always assumed that I was the one that got burned that day. And then I read this book and I realized, oh my gosh, my mom and dad, I had no idea what they went through. You're a mother. You know what this is like. As bad as your pain might be, it's nothing compared to a child's. And I read it from my mother's voice and it broke me. And then I read about my siblings. And I had always assumed I was the one that had endured hardship that day. And I read about what they went through. And it was far worse in some regards. They went parentless for 6 months. The spotlight was on me for years afterwards. And it just opened me up. So that was a starting point. And then a turning point was a little Girl Scout invited me to speak. So she had read that book. It moved her. She calls me and says, Mr. John, will you speak at my school? And I would have never said yes because I'm introverted, actually. I don't like the bright light. And I never felt like I was a public speaker at all. But the day before, our pastor in church had said, John, and family, community, he spoke to all of us. Your life is a precious gift. You got one job. Say yes to being used for good. Say yes to being used for good. And so, with that echo still kind of reverberating, I said yes to this one Girl Scout, did a lousy job, trust me, or ask them. But I walked out of that room and a dad pulled me aside and said, John, that was awesome. Would you speak at my Rotary Club? And then from that, it led to a Kiwanis Club. And then from that, it led to a Chamber of Commerce. And then from that, a prison. And then while in that prison, a guy who ran the entire prison for Kansas, the system, was there. And so it wasn't intentional. It wasn't on a blueprint or it wasn't a 5-year plan. I didn't want to meet Oprah. I didn't want to do interviews or have a movie made. I was just trying to say yes to being used for good. And I think there's even wisdom in that. This idea of shutting your eyes in life, offering up a prayer, and then taking a left foot in front of the right, and then the right foot right behind that one, and stepping forward and watch what happens.
What do you hope people walk away from? We're hoping, a lot of folks join us at our inspiration breakfast. Usually there's not a seat open in the house for
Hmm.
your year. For this one, what do you hope people walk away with after hearing your word,
Yeah,
your message?
I think several things. The first would be that in a marketplace that seems to promote darkness, that there's reason to recognize there is an awful lot of light. So when there's an awful lot of despair in your life, this message will renew within you hope. And, it's called the inspiration breakfast. Inspiration, not the inspiration of some great former athlete or speaker or whatever, like me. Like, no, no, no. Inspiration for your life. So that's really important. Those two pieces. The third piece though is, man, when I look at my story from those who served me well and changed my world, some of those guys are athletes. Some of those guys, President Reagan, Nancy, Pope John Paul II, like we were really lifted up by some significant people. So that's cool. But looking more closely at the story, the most inspirational and impactful people in my life were nurses, were parents, were little siblings. My janitor, his name was Lavelle. Like ordinary folks showed up. And in doing their work well, they changed a child's trajectory. So my hope is that people leave with a grateful heart. They leave inspired to recognize that their life can be used for good. And they also recognize that in spite of their role or position in life, that they can change the world for good.
You mentioned the feature film now out, and pretty remarkable, right? Now it's based on your story. What is it like for you to see your story through that lens?
Unpleasant.
Oh.
It's just so surreal. I mean, imagine here's the real story. I mean, I am a very transparent guy in interviews, in books. I try to write to a best friend. And so someone asked me years ago, can I take your book and convert it into a film? And I said, yes, because I never thought it would happen. Well, it did happen, which means like the most private parts about my life, the things I'm scared to talk about, the things I wish would not have happened, the mistakes I wish I would not have made, the difficulty I put my family and myself through, they're all in it. But also in that film are the incredible heroes who shut up, what they did, the words they spoke, the actions, and the result of it all. So the number one rated film in the country, for theatrically released in 2025, is a film called Soul on Fire, according to audience response. It's called the popcorn score, 98%. Why? And I think it's because in a world that is so focused on either the bad or the evil or heroes, but the heroes that we promote wear capes or they fly spaceships, in shows up this little humble film about an ordinary family who experienced profound trauma, and then ordinary folks who showed up and changed their life. So people from every background, faith, racial, whatever the thing, we all come into this theater age, and you walk out recognizing that's me. I've been through some struggles, but I also recognize there's so much more for me in life. So that's been a wild journey to see the most private parts of my life on the big screen, but now celebrated. Recently, it was the number one film in the country on Netflix. Why? I think it's because people are just hungry for hope and encouragement and stories of true heroes stepping forward and changing lives. So it's hard to be a normal kid from the Midwest, and I'm a dad of four, and I'm married to a beautiful girl, and like we're ordinary. The more you get to know me, the more bored you'll be by me. That's the truth. But now we go out in public or we go through airports and we're recognized because of this little film. And it then, what people come up and they say is, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. It gives me so much more hope in mine. So if our story can provide hope for others, then we'll do it all day long.
So many of us go through the motions, right? That's just our days. And I think you speak about the blessings in the everyday. So for you, what does it look like to be fully alive in all of this, all of
Mhm.
what you're doing and what you're sharing with people?
Well, first, I might begin with thinking of things that keep you fully dead.
Mm.
And one of the things is technology. My phone is off. It's on do not disturb all the time. I have a few favorites, my wife, my mom, and my four kids. Everyone else, though, I'll get to the phone when I purposefully look at it. I'm really not on social media. I'll share, you and I talked offline about a few things I wrote recently. But we do that. We post occasionally to give people hope and then pull away from it. Like we don't want to spend too much time living someone else's life. I would rather help someone physically. I'd rather be in the room with someone. So be aware of the things that keep you from being fully alive. So that's been very helpful for me in my life. And for me, this is just a little process we try to use. I wake up about an hour before I really want to. I love to sleep, man. So I have to get myself out of bed before I really want to go. And what I do is I go outside. I always watch the sunrise. I'm blown away by that, by the beauty of where we live. I mean, I was on your side of Florida earlier today, watching the sunrise, blown away at the beauty of where we live. And if you sleep in or you're looking the wrong direction, you miss it. So begin with your eyes trained on the things that matter. Take pause to recognize where you receive this. I don't think life is an accident. We can have conversations around specifically what faith do we lean into, and that's a fine conversation to have. But recognize that you are not here by chance. There's a God who whispered, and life sprung forth, including yours. That is so awesome. So I begin every day looking east. I watch the sunrise. I pray. I read the word. I have a gratitude list. These are all things that help get me centered. I take a walk. Um, this helps keep me present and focus on the things that matter most. One thing that helps, and then I'll be quiet, when I'm in new relationships, even Paige with you, I begin every conversation with the statement, I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. I love you, there's nothing you can do about it. And if you've seen the movie Soul on Fire, you know that's a line that shows up four different times in the movie. I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. My dad said that all the time growing up. I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. And it would be sometimes when we brought home disappointing report cards or when he grounded us and said, you're not going out for 2 weeks. And as we start crying, as we go up as teenagers into our rooms, he would also whisper up the stairwell, I love you. And there's nothing you can do about it. When we'd crash his car at 16 because we were doing something dumb, when we burned down his house, all the things we did, he always greeted it with, I love you. And there's nothing you can do about it. There was an old writer named Og Mandino, who wrote a book called The World's Greatest Salesman, late 60s. And in that book, Mandino says, how do I greet every person I meet? And I'd invite all of you to think about it. And what if they're wearing the wrong kind of t-shirt, the one you don't agree with, for whatever reason? How do you greet that person? What if they don't treat you with respect? What if they get your name wrong the barista called your name wrong, misspelled it even? Well, how do you greet these people? And Mondino says this, you should say, I love you. And there's nothing you can do about it. These words, though spoken in silence, unwrinkle your brow, shine through your eyes, will bring a smile to your face, and will echo in your voice. So the most precious way that I can be present in the situation at hand is to love the person in front of me, whether that's you, Paige, right now, or sometimes it's one of my kids or my wife or a stranger or the reflection staring back at me in the mirror. So intentional gratitude, pause in the moment, embrace what you got, look east, give God thanks for the blessings, and then share with the person in front of you that you love them and watch what happens in these relationships.
I love you too, John.
Thank you, Paige. I
Nothing you
wasn't
can do about
expecting
it.
that today.
And you know what? What's so cool about that is when I spoke to Heather from the YMCA when we were putting this call together, she said, "You're gonna love him right away." And that's, you know, it's just your story and what you how you share it, and how
Right.
your thoughts and how you share them and express them. Um, I can't wait to have you here at the South Palm Beach County.
I'm extremely honored to be invited into the Y. It is such a worthy mission. It's such a beautiful community. And part of my job, I think that morning, we're going to be having breakfast under the tent, is to remind people look east. We're in paradise. Don't stare down. Don't look the wrong direction. Don't be too preoccupied to miss the profound blessings that are in front of you today. And then first embracing the gifts you have, then also recognize the call to be generous with others. So it's going to be an awesome day. I'm honored to be a part of it, and I can't wait to meet your friends.
Well, can't wait to have you. And in the meantime, how can folks connect with you just to learn a little bit more before you get here?
I mean, if you go to johnolearyinspires.com, that's our website where we hold everything. So johnolearyinspires.com. And what you'll find there is links to the film. That might be a cool place to start. Well, watch the movie. You'll be so amazed at
You have
this
two
true
books
story.
too, right? So it's the big question, right? Do we read the books and then watch the movie? What do you think? Movie
Oh,
first?
goodness. I think the hard thing about movies is you have a life of effort that they put into 90 minutes. So there's so much more in the books than you'll find in the film. The film is a standalone alone, though. Here's what I'll say about the film. We're getting more than 100 emails a day from random individuals in the community reaching out to us, thanking them for now laughing and crying and feeling renewed in hope. So these are the messages coming straight into that little website, not to mention the stuff on social media and the reviews online. So the movie will move people. So as a standalone, it's awesome. I think people will love what the actors and the musicians were able to put together. The book, when I write, I begin every chapter with the words "dear," and then I think of a person's name like Paige,
Mhm.
and I try to write each chapter to a friend. And I try to write it as personally as something that would help Paige really become the woman that I know she's intended to be. And so if you write like that, you're able to express yourself in ways that it seems like you're writing only for one person. I learned this from a guy named Henry Nouwen. Henry writes so vulnerably, and you feel sorry for him. He's so vulnerable, but you feel sorry for him as you're turning the pages because you can't wait to see what he writes next. And so the books have a lot of vulnerability, but a lot of sage wisdom, I hope, for people to borrow from. And maybe the final thing on the website is links to like the podcast that we have and social media, if that's what you want to do. So just go to johnolearyinspires.com. And whether you watch the movie, read the book, or just hang out with me online, it will be a great way to connect.
My last question is, I know hope is such a big word, and you spread it easily, quickly. You spread it quickly, and but as we know from the moment this you're from 9 years old, uh, it things have been hard, right? So how do you, when you're having a tough moment, right? Just to put a little pep in our steps,
Right.
dear anybody here, what would you say to that?
Well, first of all, let me thank you for asking the question. I think most people who interview me believe poor little John at age 9 went through struggle. Oh, and then he got out and he was fine for the next 39 years. And the reality is, my scars cover me from my neck to my toes. I'm in physical pain every day of my life. I get stared at in rooms where folks don't know me for being less than sometimes others. They feel sorry for me or they wonder why Beth would fall in love with me. Like life is not easy for John O'Leary most days. And if that's where you want to live, have at it. But if your heart is just bent toward gratitude and praise and love and enthusiasm, it allows you to embrace those stares and those words with compassion. So here's what I would say to those people like me who struggle every day. Okay, so now it's all of us, Paige, you, me, and everyone else. My dad, when I did not want to go back to school, this is like when I was 10. I'm in a wheelchair back then. Man, I'm just pretty sure it's going to be a horrible day and a horrible life. And my father comes in and I just keep saying, Dad, why me? Why me? Why me? And finally, this old Army veteran, awesome guy says to me, John, darn it, why not you? The terrible thing has happened in your past. And if you want to be a victim to it for the rest of your life, have at it. No one's going to blame you ever. You've been through the worst. And then he says, or you can be a victor. And in every room we roll you into, or one day we walk you into, people will look up in awe at what you've overcome in the life you live today. And then he said, John, victim or victor, your choice, not mine. My dad kissed me on the forehead, stood up, and walked out of that room, leaving a 10-year-old burned, fingerless, wheelchair-bound child on a morphine drip to wrestle. And it's a wrestle I still have now as a 48-year-old guy sometimes. But it's a wrestle where I recognize my answer to it determines what happens throughout the course of that day. Victim or victor, your choice, not mine. So for those who are struggling with that right now, I would say me too. I would say lean into your faith. I would say ask a friend for help. And I would say if you really want to be bold, the best way I know to shift my attention is when I serve someone else. The more I navel gaze, the more miserable my life gets. But when I just love someone else instead in front of me, a lot of times my struggles begin to fade.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all of that. Thank you for these minutes that you shared with me. And I hope that we can spread your good word. And we're all going to fall in love with you, John. So thank you.
We'll spend more than 20 minutes and you won't. All right. So get to know the real John. You'll be yawning halfway through the salads. Hey, I'm looking forward to it, Paige. Thanks again.
Well, safe travels and enjoy that sunrise tomorrow morning. And we'll see you here shortly.
Look forward to it.
Take care. Thank you.